Welcome to the video, welcome to the conversation where I ask God to give me a topic to talk about, give me either a topic or give me some cards that he'd like me to talk about. And today I chose to use some tarot cards. The first card that came out was the Queen of Wands. And in this scenario, the Queen of Wands is talking about our ability to create life, to create our own reality as we would like to see it. And so the most gifted creator in the deck for me is the Empress. But the Empress is an energy that has already done all the work in order to be able to manifest and create. And she's just waiting for her creations to come in. She's watching her creations come in. They're already created. They're already in the world. They're already coming towards her. But the Queen of Wands in this case is talking about the first step to creation. The first step to creation, whether we're masculine or feminine, we have to be in our feminine energy. We have to understand our ability to be able to create. And to be able to create is a feminine energy. So the Queen of Wands being the first card isn't just talking to females, it's talking to humanity as a whole. And God wants humanity as a whole to understand our innate ability to create and to manifest and to co-create the world that we live in. And whatever it is that we want, we can achieve with the right work, with the right understanding of ourselves and the right understanding of how creation actually works. And it all starts in the mind. It all starts in the mind. It all starts with being clear on what we actually want, and then creating passion, enough passion. Passion is your energy bank for that creation to come into fruition. Passion and belief. And passion is a feeling, but our feelings are generated from our thoughts. Or the way for us to manipulate our feelings, the way for us to manipulate that passion in order to be able to create at will, in time and with practice, we can use our minds to manipulate those emotions, that emotion of passion, that feeling of passion. And that is our magic. That is the magic that we have within us. That's where it starts. It starts with that understanding of our ability to create and that belief. There's nothing that we can do without belief. And that's like that has a double meaning to it. Because there's everything that we can create with belief. I don't know who this well-known saying comes from, but there's a saying that whether we believe we can or whether we believe we can't is true. And God really wants me to drill home the understanding of our abilities to be able to create literally whatever it is that we want. And that there doesn't mean that we can just think passionately about something and it's going to come to us. There's a lot of work that we have to do after that, a lot of times internal. So we can just sit back and expect what it is we want to come to us, as long as we do the internal work. Let me give you an example. So let's say there's a unlimited amount of examples that I could use, but I'm going to use a family example right now. Let's pretend that there's a mother out there who is really stressed with their home life. Their kids are playing up and they really want their kids to start behaving in a better way for the kids' own good at the end of the day, and for her own good, for her own sanity and peace of mind. So that can be manifested. That can be manifested if this mother who has this thought puts some real passion behind it and envisages a future where that there is the case. And you know, to manifest anything, you have to have like laser focus on what it is that you're trying to manifest. So let's say she builds that laser focus. She puts a lot of mental energy into it, driven by passion, by really, really wanting it to happen and really, really believing that it can happen. That won't, well, for me, I don't think that there would be enough. She would then have to start looking at herself. What can she do to make the environment better? What can she do? What internal work can she do to be a better mother? What work can she do to better portray these ideas to her children? And it's in that work there that the manifestation really starts to gain power, really starts to gain motion and momentum. It takes it from being just an idea, a passionate idea, to an idea that now has got wheels and it's moving. And when it starts moving in that way, you're showing the spiritual world, because as above, so below. It has a lot of meanings, but in this situation here, everything that we want to create first is created in the spiritual world. First is created in the heavens. And when we give it them wheels by action, and like I said, that action could just be internal action. You know, what can I do better? And then it becomes outward action, because you can't just think, oh, what can I do better, and then not do anything about it. You're thinking, what can I do better? How can I deal with these situations better? How can I be a better mother? And then those actions are actually materializing because you're passionate about it and you're really putting that work in. The as above, so below comes into it, because once you start taking the action and putting the wheels on the manifestation and the desires, you're showing the spirit world that you really, really want this. And not only do you really want it, you're actually doing the work to make an environment that your desires can really live in and really take anchor in. And that there's where, within the heavens, within the spiritual world, within the astral, within the 5D, these things will start to you know, our spirit team, God, the angels, the movers and shakers of the spirit world will begin to work in unison with your desires. And that there's when seeming miracles seem to happen, and certain obstacles are moved out of the way, and you know, maybe you know, reality will start to bend to whatever it is that you want to happen. So I'll just use the parent wanting a different home life and a different family life for themselves and their children, and therefore a different future for their children as well, because I imagine that's what the driving force behind that would be. But that example can be fit into any single scenario or manifestation or desire that we want. That process of really desiring it, really passionately desiring it, doing the internal work that needs to be done to make you aligned with what it is that you want, and then taking the outward action to make sure that the world that you live in, the reality that you're part of, is beginning to change and bend and be suitable to what it is that you're desiring. That's the steps that we have to take. Sorry, I'm not very fluent with my words right now. I'm a lot better at speaking than I am on these videos. There's a lot that I'll think about whilst I'm making these videos. I'm not comfortable being on camera, but with time, I guess I will be. That's another thing, I suppose, why God wants me to mention that. We can't always wait for the perfect time. Sometimes we have to really chuck ourselves in at the deep end and do things that we're not comfortable with. You know, get out of our comfort zone, push ourselves into realms of reality that we don't actually see in that moment in time, and in doing so then grow into the empty spaces. You know, I could try and become more confident on camera and try to get so comfortable that I can speak naturally, but there's no better training than actually making the videos and posting them out there and putting myself in a vulnerable position. And that's going to cause me to grow into the areas that I'm not actually inhabiting right now, if that makes sense. But anyway, the next card is the Fool. So our potential is unlimited. Our potential is unlimited, and we open up the realms of unlimited possibilities when we start to really use that power that we've got within, when we really use the power of free will, because this is all about free will. It's all about, you know, manifesting is about free will. It's about willing into existence what it is that you want to experience. And as long as we're not using that free will to create what it is that we want on an individual basis, we're not using our free will. We're giving our free will away to a lifestyle that we don't even want. And therefore, those who are creating that lifestyle that we don't want is able to use the power of our free will to create that life that we don't want, if that makes any sense. So when we take our power back and we start to create what it is we want to see, and we then open up the realms of unlimited potential, it's exactly that. It's the potential that we open ourselves up to is truly unlimited. We could go anywhere we want to go with that. You know, let's just say so for some reason what's popping into my mind is an old person wanting to become an astronaut. Now, on the face of it, that may seem impossible. But and in the world where the majority of mankind was given their free will away, maybe it was impossible in that realm. But we're moving into a new era, a new realm of possibilities. And when we move into that new realm of possibilities, where each individual is taking their free will back, and we start creating the world that we want, rather than creating the world that the darkness that we give our power away to wants, there's nothing that says that we can't create a world where eventually, in time, we can create at will whatever it is that we want. If there's enough, I'll leave that there because I don't want to contradict myself. But there is a realm of possibilities where an old person could become an astronaut. Like I said, the way the world is at the minute, and the way that people give away so much of their free will as it stands right now, we may not be in that realm of possibility right in this second, but that isn't to say that in the future we won't be. Because, you know, I'm sure a lot of people in the world have seen news articles or news programs where they talk about quantum physics and how the reality as we experience it isn't as solid as the majority of people think. We create reality. Reality is almost like a hologram. We create reality with our minds. And when we begin to take our free will back, and we understand our power, and we really delve into the realms of manifestation, I honestly think that the realms of manifestation that there is out there is so magical that at present there's no one really, I imagine, on earth that can really imagine what it would be like when we actually begin to develop the God-given abilities that we've got to create reality. And it's in that realm that very much so OAP that wants to become an astronaut would be able to become an astronaut almost instantly. But I'm going to move on. The next card was the Ace of Swords. So there's a truth to life, like I was just talking about there. There's a truth to life that is really hidden away from us. And we live in a time where God is really trying to show us the truth of life, the truth of our abilities, the truth of what life should be. And this here is all part of it. You know, I'm sure there'll be many people moving forward who will be opening mankind's eyes to their true power. You know, these old myths. I hate the idea of myths, because the more that time goes on, the more these myths are shown to not be myths. They say Atlantis was a myth. It wasn't a myth. There's too much evidence to say that Atlantis was a real place. So what reason have the powers that be within this 3D world, because the real powers that be is the divine, what benefit would they have for making out these old stories and myths, other than to take us as far away from our real abilities as they possibly can? And by calling these things myths, that is what they're doing. They're creating a reality where the abilities that we've got aren't real. They say Merlin and all them stories are myths. I live in Devon in the UK, right next to Cornwall, and there's a place in Cornwall, Tintagel Castle I think it's called, and that is the place that is very prominent in the story of Merlin and King Arthur, one of the places. So how is there places where there's castles and real life evidence of these stories in the past? Why are there actual 3D tangible things that we can go and see and touch, but somehow the story of it is a myth? And that's a huge lie, in my opinion. But the reason I brought up Merlin and Atlantis is because the so-called myths of those times, and there are other examples that I'm going to go into in a sec, are stories of superhuman powers. Again, superhuman. They talk about superhuman as some sort of myth as well, but let's look at like modern times. There are people that they say are superhuman now, alive right now. People who could bend spoons and control the weather and control their body and control disease within their bodies and control their body temperatures, and people who could float and fly, almost not fly but defy gravity and float up off the floor. There's people that can start fires with their bare hands, with the energy within their bodies, and many more. There's people that can move things with their mind. How are those things possible? They're just a tiny glimpse into the power that we've actually got as human beings. They're just a tiny glimpse. And God is trying to hand us the truth of what life actually is. And he's not trying, he is and handing us the truth of what life really is. And in time, that's what this new era is. That's what the end times is. The end times is the end of the world as we knew it, and a whole new beginning. I asked my son the other day, because he mentioned the end times, and I said, what do you think the end times mean? And he said exactly that. The end of an old time and the beginning of a whole new beginning. I was like, go on, son. Because I've never spoke to him about that. That was just his internal knowing. But yeah, the time that we live in right now, the end times, is just the end of the darkness that ruled this world. The end of the world being, not the end of the darkness, because there is no end to the darkness. Just as there's light, there's darkness, and there can't be, the darkness can't go. But when I say the darkness, I'm talking about the nefarious evil that has been able to control the minds of certain leaders within this world, and dark energies. There's a lot about that. There's a lot about that, and way too much to go into today. But the end times is basically a new beginning, and that new beginning is humanity's rebirth, let's just say. And it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time to be alive. Like, we're honestly so lucky to be a part of what's about to take place over the next coming years, let's just say. You know, I imagine that the change that's going to happen is going to take hundreds of years, but that there doesn't mean that we're not going to see the change with our own eyes. We're going to be constantly creating new realities, constantly, but the overall change is going to, for the whole world to be dragged into, drag's the wrong word, I don't want to use that word, but for the whole world to catch up, I'd say it could take 100, maybe even a couple 100 years. But you have to understand that with the Queen of Wands coming out first, and our ability to create, and with that example that I used about science, realizing that as human beings we create reality, we create the reality we see within our minds, and reality is almost like a hologram, is like a basic explaining. It's not a hologram, but well, it is. It's just a really complex hologram, and the more that people wake up, not the more that people wake up, each individual is going to have a choice on what reality they decide to to be a part of. And that's what God wants, that's what this is all about. This conversation that God wants me to have today is about people understanding that they have a choice on whether they're going to be a part of this new beginning during this lifetime, or whether they're going to be a part of the new beginning in the next lifetime or the lifetime after. But understand that the sooner that each individual does decide to fully partake in this new beginning, the quicker that the acceleration of the whole new world being a whole new world can take place. At first, for each individual that decides to do this, their world will be different. Their world will begin to change and morph and become a part of this new beginning. But it's going to take a certain amount of people collectively to make the whole world come with us. And don't get, because we create our own reality, if there's members of society, members of mankind who don't want that, they don't have to. They can project out the reality that they do want. And that's where the earth will end up splitting, and it won't be an actual split. It'll be a split within the world's constantly splitting anyway. There's alternate realities living side by side. Every single thought that we have goes off in its own reality on a whole different world living side by side with us. So exactly how this split will happen, I don't know. I don't know the science behind it, so I'm not going to pretend I do. Maybe such a strong collective will happen that the world itself, because the alternate realities are happening within our own projections almost, to my understanding. But the earth also has its own consciousness, so I don't know whether when so many people do it, the earth itself will create its own alternate reality. I don't know, I digress. Second to last card was the Page of Pentacles. So that's basically saying that the new beginning is in our hands. See, he's holding the pentacle in his hands, both hands. Our new beginning is in our hands. A whole new world is in our hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. The hymn from some UK watchers can, I imagine, can remember singing those hymns in primary school. Whatever happened to hymns, singing hymns? I used to love that part of the day. I used to actually hate it at the time, but looking back, it's such a fond memory, singing hymns to God every morning. That's a thing of the past. Like, every school used to do that. But yeah, he's got the whole world in his hands. It's coming to mind, the song. Our ability, I'm sure the majority of humankind's heard someone say somewhere along the line that we are gods. And we are, to a certain degree. We are a slice of God. And just the same as, they call it a fractal image, where any part of that image you look in, you could see the whole of the whole image within that little fragment. That is life. I watched a video of, I think it may have been a TED talk, where they were saying that they somehow got a picture of God, and I think it was basically a picture of like a cell or a proton or something. They had a picture of something, and they zoomed in and zoomed in and zoomed in, and they realized that any part of this image that they zoomed in on was just an image of the whole. And if they picked another point in that image and zoomed into it, it's just you could just keep zooming in, and it just keep unfolding this same image of what the whole image is. And that's what we are. We are a fractal of God, but within us we hold the whole of God. And that's what God wants us to know, that stepping into this new world, we will become the fractals of God that we are and that we are meant to be living as. And that's where in the Bible Jesus must have talked about humanity going on and accomplishing greater feats than he ever did, because he was creating miracles and magic. Miracles and magic for me are the same thing. He was creating miracles within this very suffocated reality. Best way that I can describe it. So yeah, where the last card was the Knight of Swords. So the swords are the mind. Fighting. We have to really put a lot of effort in to do this, guys, mentally. And that's where the effort is, mental. We don't have to go out into the world and fight, swinging swords. It's not that kind of action that's needed. We need to swing our sword internally. We need to swing our sword at the idea that we have all the power we need within ourselves. There's someone coming, but the last card at the bottom of the deck was the Ten of Swords. So if we don't do these things, if we don't do that, then we're betraying ourselves. We're betraying humanity. We're betraying the idea that God has for us. And we can't do that. We can't be the Judas of this story. We've spent too many years being Judases to the world. Being Judases to our own story. Because that's what humanity from the past have been. Each individual has been a Judas to their own story. By a very small few. But in the grand scheme of things, on the whole, humanity have been a Judas to their own lives. Which is sad. But those days are coming to an end. And like I said, whether it's in this lifetime, the next lifetime, or the lifetime after, humanity as a whole, to a certain degree, will move into the new era. And it's really, really a beautiful thing to behold. It will be a beautiful thing to behold, but the idea is a beautiful thing to behold. So, another beautiful conversation from my perspective. I love having these conversations. I love coming out into nature and giving messages or making messages that I feel God wants me to make. You can't really see how beautiful it is where I am, but anyway, lots of love.